Today, we're going to be jumping into the world of Monero, taking a look at some of its price potential in that next bullish market. There's a lot of speculation out there. How high can Monero go in 2025? So today will be my Monero price prediction for 2025. As I get into today's video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button. If you are new to the channel, subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, check out the Discord linked in the description. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with Monero. Okay, so here we have Monero, XMR, paired up with USDT. This is the one-day one-day gate.io chart, not the Binance chart because it's not actually listed on Binance as far as I could tell. But we do see here a lot of information on Monero, where we have the origin data coming in from October 2017 all the way up to where we are today. Now, for us to be able to predict out where we think the price action could be going in 2025, we have to take a look at the history and see whether or not there's any decent data points that we can kind of reflect and say history is likely to repeat itself. There's two tools that we're going to use to help us with this. We're going to use predictive price analysis based tools. We're not going to be using indicators. Indicators typically only show you what's already happened, and they're not really predictive over where things could potentially be going. Instead, what we're going to use is we're going to use Fibonacci retracement tools. That's this one just here. Okay, this allows you to kind of track the kind of behaviors based on Fibonacci sequencing. Okay, based on kind of buying and selling and that kind of behavior. Now, we do use our charts in a logarithmic view. If it's not in logarithmic, it will look something like this. And when it's logarithmic, it calculates the price differences across the field. Now, when we have our charts in logarithmic, it's very important that our Fibonacci retracement tools are also in logarithmic. I'm going to take the settings just over here, or we can double click into it. We can scroll all the way down of the style tab, and we can click the fib levels based on log scale. If you do not do this, as you can see the fibs here, if I turn this off, it will change those prices. So you don't get an accurate representation of what's potentially going to happen. Okay, so these are the numbers I'm using, or the fib levels I am using for the fib retracement and extension tool. So you can pause the video and copy this if you want. But otherwise, that's going to be the first thing that we're going to use. It's going to be the Fibonacci retracement and extension tool, which is built into TradingView. The other thing that we're going to use is Elliott Wave. Elliott Wave is a very predictive tool based on the psychology of buying and selling. Okay, that usually runs in 3 waves like this, or it runs in 5 waves. We'll use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in an example, but you can of course get W, X, Y, X, and Z, which mirrors that of 5-wave movements. And of course you get the triangles as well, looking like this, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, it's a little bit of a complex subject. That's why I put together a whole course on Elliott Wave down in the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗀𝗀school.com, linked in the description. And I do run frequent discounts. I'll link it in the description if there are any running at the moment. Okay, so with all that being said, let's take a look at what's going on, because we need to address what happened historically in the 2017 bull market, 2021 bull market, as to where we think things could go in 2025. Okay, so first of all, we can see pretty much a straight line from the low level down here, coming in at $12.12 on the 23rd of October 2017. Now, that might not be the point of origin, but it is a point of reference that we have on our charts. This saw a push to the upside, coming in at a high of $487, and that of course was on December 20th 2017. Okay, so straight off the bat we can see that there was a high and a low. We saw some pretty interesting kind of percentages on the back of that. Let me zoom right in and snap this to that wick low and that wick high. This was a move of 3,917%. Now, Monero is a privacy-based project. Basically, it uses a lot of zero knowledge stuff. Essentially what it means is you can't track transactions with Monero. So it gets a little bit of scrutiny because obviously regulators don't like that. They want to be able to trace everything. So Monero is one of those projects that I think is going to have a lot of regulatory issues unless of course we see changes, which is possible of course. With all that being said, we had a really good run to the upside. We then saw a move to the downside in a bear market of 2018. We bottomed out during C19 back in March of 2020, $25.29 cents, with a new all-time high getting set just up a little bit higher than the previous, with a high coming in at $518. The percentage gain here was obviously lower, as you do tend to find diminishing gains over time, 1,948%. Okay. Our bear market from our previous high into our lows are very interesting. We bottomed out in June of 2022 by the looks of it, and it has held up in very, very well so far. Okay, so we have a most recent bear market low coming in at $96.82. Now, based on our kind of structures here, there's a couple of things to look at. We have a big reset here on a much bigger run to the upside, which is a possible scenario. However, with Monero not really being listed on one of the biggest exchanges, Coinbase or on Binance, with a lot of regulatory issues around that, we might find the inability to see fresh demand really coming in outside of those exchanges. So you'll have things like KuCoin, you'll have Gate.io, you may have a few others that will list Monero, and of course decentralized exchanges are obviously a win for privacy-based projects like XMR. So we want to be aware that there's going to be a little bit of a challenge in terms of trying to get fresh demand coming in. Now, looking at this, we could still be looking for a pretty significant run to the upside. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the distance of our 2017 bull market. This is important because we want to address how high we think things could go in 2025 based on a multi-year view. Okay, if we have a multi-year view here, we could potentially see Monero doing reasonably well. I'm just going to zoom right in here so I can get this down at the 24.29, which I think 25.29, sorry, right here. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom out and we're going to put a yellow box on this targeted range right in here. Now this is actually a conservative area. It might seem a little unrealistic to some, but it is actually quite conservative. We're talking about $1,015 to $2,428, okay? So that's going to be the first target. And the reason for that is that we can see the Fibonacci areas right in here, okay? The 1 to the 1.236. This is because it would represent a three-wave structure across multiple years, as in we would have a kind of idea of a W, X, Y pattern, let's say. Okay, now with that being said, we'd also have to measure the distance that we see here, okay, coming in from the previous bull market high and the bear market low. If I can snap that there. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in because I've not snapped that to the correct wick. We're going to move it right there at 518 on the high. Okay, now with this Fibonacci, we can go ahead and move this over to our bear market low of 2022, which was coming in at the low of 96.82, I believe. So I'm just going to go ahead and check to make sure that I get this Fibonacci level pinned right on the correct level, like so. 96.82, and then I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and we're going to take a look at what that would predict. That would predict a bit more of a bullish target range, okay, coming in more in this little area here. Again, we're targeting out the 1 to the 1.236 on the fib scales, and this would be looking at 1,983 to 4,046, okay? So these are two targets. Let's go ahead and remove the fibs off the chart so we can pay attention to what is going on there, okay? This would basically look like a three-wave pattern again, A, B, and C to that slightly higher range. Now you can see there's overlap here, okay, between that low range of 1,982 and of course the higher range of 2,434. Okay, so that overlap is basically where you can think that maybe we'll see a Y wave movement. Now from our kind of bear market low point down here of 96.82, if we were to go to the lower range expectation, it's about 971%, and I think that is highly achievable. It's still diminishing gains over time, so we're not talking about massive movements, but we're talking about $1,000. So from its current price, it's going to be reasonable, a 6 to 7x kind of potential. If we move up to the lower range of the higher range expectations, that's a 1,900% move. So again, pretty lucrative. Again, we still see reasonable gains at that level, similar to kind of what we saw in 2021. If we move up to the higher range of the lower expectations, about 2,400%, and if we move right up into those higher ranges around $4,000, it's about 4,000% in gains. So we can see that there's some potential here. okay, to do reasonably well when it comes to the price action of XMR. But of course, like I mentioned earlier, XMR is or does have a reputation. Okay, that reputation is going to hinder it, my belief anyway. Now, it has a place for true anonymity, right? We obviously want to make sure that we're as anonymous on the internet as possible, right? Your data is key and it's king, right? And so projects like Monero have a really strong position in the market, right? There's an ethos, there's a community behind these things. But from a regulatory point of view, it is the first kind of type of cryptocurrency that's going to get attacked. Compliance, privacy, I think, is really where the future goes. And I do think Monero will potentially pivot more towards that if it hasn't done so already. Like I say, I don't keep up to date with all of the fundamentals on every single project. Maybe it's already working on compliance when it comes to its privacy elements. There's definitely things like Zcash, for example, and there's other projects that are private and they kind of mask things with their 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘. And can be unmasked to third parties and so forth. There are projects that are already doing this, and I think Monero will eventually have no choice but to pivot towards it, which essentially means it's private to everybody except for authorized personnel. Okay, so for example, you might want your accountant to be able to unmask pieces of information so they can submit your tax returns correctly to the correct authorities and so forth. So Monero has a place in crypto. I do believe that, and I do think privacy-based projects have a really strong potential to do phenomenally well in the next few years or so. And I do think Monero here also can see some pretty strong potential in 2025 in terms of price predictions. But I would be really conservative. Aim for $1,000. Maybe we can push it to 2,000 if we're really, really lucky. But ultimately, I don't think this is going to be one that's going to balloon up massively and we're going to see, 10,000, 20,000% in gains. I think those days are long and gone. But of course, these are just my thoughts and opinions on the data in the charts as I see it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, or join us in our free Discord server and we can continue the conversations down there. If you found this video helpful and informative, smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and don't forget to check that video out right there. It's one you probably don't want to miss.